There's a few announcements that I need to make. If you looked at the email that Janet sent, she reminded you that you may pay your dues today, and there are advantages to paying your dues today, because June 1st, the dues go up $5, except for students and businesses. So if you pay before June 1st, you get to pay the dues that we have had. We have several newsletters from other historical societies that are mailed to us, and Shar, who checks the mail, thinks some of you might be interested in them, and they're on the table back there, so feel free to go ahead and pick one up.
They're really interesting.
Yeah, she said they're very good. Before I talk about our next meeting, Shar, can you, from back there, Shar told me,
Oops, you might want to drag
and
her up
other
there.
people, I guess, know, they cut the cross down.
They did. The cross is gone, but
Here, Shar.
You got to be here.
the cross is gone, but we already had kind of like a plan of action from about 4 years ago. They had originally said this, and so we kind of all scrambled.
Here, sorry.
Okay, so we kind of all scrambled to see what we could do with the cross at that time, and then we realized, no, it wasn't coming down. So then about 3 months ago, they said same story was going around, so me and Joel McKay were on it, but could not talk to the owner, anything like that. Well, somehow the search and rescue ended up with the cross and paid $250 for it. And the cross is still up there, but tomorrow morning at 8:30, the cross is coming down. My nephew is going to bring it down. It's going to be stored. And then we are going to try from the land management to see if there's another hill it can go on. If not, it needs to go on a piece of property that's completely paid for so that it doesn't get moved again, hopefully, that type of thing. So Charlie's church over here, right by the freeway, he's going to talk to his deacons and see if that's a possibility. So if anybody else has ideas or anything like that, just shout out to me. And Joel's kind of spearheading that. The Queens are going to do fundraising for it. So there's the $250 fee, Joel's already paid that, but we would like to reimburse them. And then just the movement of it, have it repainted, that type of thing. So, yeah.
I have a quick, I think because it's on social media,
Right.
the more we can calm down social media, the better we'll be. So don't play into the whole social media.
Yeah,
Just
I agree.
we
Because
gotta
people
plan.
are against crosses.
And I think we should ask Search and Rescue to give it to us and we'll buy fireworks from them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. So, yeah, but anyways, there is a plan of action. It's sad to see it go, but then we have to look at the positive. At least we have the cross, right? And Jeff Youngblood, who does drones for business, for real estate and all that, he is going to film all that for us tomorrow so that we can present it here sometime. So that'll be fun. Yes.
So this was whoever bought it, down, or?
Yeah, okay.
It's not vandalism.
No, not vandalism. It was this is what I'm presuming happened. I'm originally some older person owned the property, and I'm sure when he left it to the next generation, they probably said, just leave it up there. That land's not sellable. You know what I mean? Then we're probably now at the third generation, and they probably don't live here, and it's sellable now. So, yeah, so that's what I think happened from what they kind of hint at. So, and that's the same story as the next generation. The person had passed, and that story's been going around for about 4 years. So, yeah, but at least between everybody, we kind of got a plan of action. So that's the new update. That's it.
Thank you,
So if
Shar.
you have any ideas, shout out.
It isn't really, it's just something that's been in the community forever, not a religious symbol. People have hiked to the cross. It's just something that's been here forever. Okay. I also want to make an announcement about the June meeting. we have several people that are not going to be available. So the board decided to cancel the June meeting. However, we are giving you all an opportunity to participate actively in going through stuff in my barn to see what I have.
That belongs to the historical.
That belongs to the Historical Society. Not my stuff, the Historical Society. I do have boxes that we have some indication as to what's in them, but I don't have a detailed bit of information about what is in them. And there is really some neat stuff out there. I don't know if I told you about the letter that I found back in the early 1900s when they were trying experiments. This is not the first time they've tried camels. They tried camels back in the 1800s, but they tried camels to carry the mail. Did I tell you about that letter?
No.
Well, we found a letter. I actually have the letter with the government camel stamp on it. And it was mailed from Fort Tejon to LA. And this was kind of a contest. And the camel with the letter got there 9 hours before the mail in the vehicle. And this is all documented on the letter. And we found this in one of the boxes that we hadn't had time to go through. You don't find this kind of really neat stuff every time, but we do have some really neat stuff, and I need to know what's out there. So you do have an opportunity. Now, my barn is not air conditioned, so we're thinking maybe the first 2 weeks in June in the morning, like 8 to 10, except the first Monday in June, I have another commitment. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe even I could squeeze in Thursday. So Shar has made, excuse me, she has made a sheet. And if you're interested, just put your name down, put your phone number, and what day you might be available or be interested. It is kind of a fun thing to do. And I think that is, oh no, I was going to talk to you about September. That's our June meeting. Our September meeting is going to be at Siobhan's Ranch, and it's going to be, we're going to have food. And then we're hoping then in October that the library will be finished. If the library isn't finished, we'll fall back and regroup.
What are they doing at the library? What are they refurbishing?
They are recarpeting, they are repainting, they pulled all the stacks out. I spoke with Amanda, the librarian, actually twice. And I called her and told her that, you know, we had changed our meeting date, and was that going to be a problem? And we may need to do some more finagling, but I guess it's just taking forever. Okay, so Siobhan, since you're our program chairman, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to you.
All righty. First of all, I just would like to take a moment to let you all know that Russ McKee passed away last week. Joni McKee's husband. And as you are stopping and thinking of, I wished I'd asked a story, I wished I'd done something, I literally had in my notes a video that I had a question to ask him about. So take the time to do those things. You don't know when it will be your last time, and you will be sorry you didn't. So I am so glad that Dolores let me drive her around town And we had a heck of a good time. We really did.
They put the word out. Do you want this?
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. And you know, when you have a celebrity in the house, we do allow the family to stand up. So we're going to let you all run up here and just parade.
You want to parade, guys?
Yes.
Well, yes. Yes. Come on up,
They may not be
sweetie.
anxious to be the parade.
Come on, honey. You come up for Grandma. You just, we're making it, Kelly, they're making this.
We'll go do it.
You gonna make Kelly come up too? She's part of the family.
She's sniveling. Come on, Kelly.
Hi, baby, you sure did.
All right, guys, say hi to Grandma. We're excited for this. It's cool.
You guys,
You
the
think
video's
so?
over there.
So right over there with Mac, and you can wave and say
Oh,
hi.
picture taken, I guess.
Everybody wave at the camera.
And every time I tell Mac I will not screw up his photography, somehow or another I manage to do it. So, but
Well, I haven't done anything yet. You don't know.
In anticipation.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. That's
so you
encouragement.
guys are so lucky to have a grandma that is full of interesting stories. And you can kind of see a little bit where this curly hair comes from. So here's Dolores, is just a little cutie patootie. And you can see Dolores and Gretchen's love of adventure. These two ladies know how to have a good time.
That was a trip.
Boy, that was a trip from New Orleans, you can just imagine. And then there is Dolores in front of the Queen Mary. Once again, this grand picture of how things are. And here they are riding, is it horses, donkeys? Mules, not camels. I've got that part.
Boy, somebody's been scouring the trip logs.
Well, yeah, I've had a great time.
Well, I guess.
This was not the port that Dolores was privy to this morning.
No, I didn't know anything about this.
And she is with Greta Castle, bringing up the rear of the group. And so you can see from this vast array of interests that she has, this woman has no shortage of knowledge. She graduated a year early from high school, not because she flunked out, but because she was smart. And she is a wealth of knowledge, and if you get a chance to just sit and listen to your grandma, there are things that will astound you. Now, I know that we live in the state of California, and I know there are streets and roads, but until this morning, I did not know there were three, what was the verb?
There were
You got to talk
baselines.
right here.
Oh, I think I don't have it close enough.
You're fine. You're fine.
3 baselines and meridians, because California is a big state. And the most northerly one is called the Humboldt Basin Meridian, which is up in Humboldt County. The one in the middle of the state is Mount Diablo Basin Meridian. A baseline runs east and west, and the meridian is north and south. Then the one we deal with is the San Bernardino Basin Meridian. And if you've ever been down to San Bernardino, there's a baseline road. I have never come across the meridian line, and I don't know what they call it. But our land is measured up to 2 miles north of Mojave. It's measured from the San Bernardino base and meridian. And you will see on your deeds many times. Went too far. I told you. I can only do one thing at a time. No, you'll see SBBM on your, one of the, probably the last letters on any deed that you have. How much detail do you want me to go into?
Well, we're gonna sightsee a little bit through
Okay.
here. Now, of course, in my world, kind of the most interesting thing is lunch and snacks. And Dolores had an interesting perspective on how they did this. So if you look right above the L in Willow, you will see a number 1. And as you're looking from left to right, you will see 1 to 6. And so Dolores, you want to tell them why they are numbering it in that direction.
Okay.
They were not drinking heavily when they did this, so there's a method.
Okay, one of the first things you need to know are these squares are sections of land, and a section of land is 640 acres. Generally speaking, it's not a perfect thing, but you can figure 640 acres. And so you can see all of California is divided, the United States too, into sections. And the government paid surveyors to mark off these sections of land, and they put a marker on every corner and then a marker halfway between, which would be called either a half section line or a quarter corner. So if you can visualize those, and visualize the guys starting to work at the northeast corner of section 1, and you can see that there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's another 1. Well, those are ranges, which is, again, how can I do this?
Have somebody else hold it for you.
Yeah, I can.
So every 6 sections is called a range, which we'll get into later, but that was a township and range business. The surveyors started up in the northeast corner of section 1, and they surveyed going west all the way to section 6, and it was then time for lunch. So they had their lunch out there, and then they came down to section 7 and surveyed back to 12, and they were home in time for dinner.
So you see how they're snaking across? Breakfast, over to lunch, and back home for dinner. Pretty slick, huh? And for those of you that are math people, you're going, who devised this number line? It was based upon meals. Now, okay, so if you were to look out here, you would see an R13, and what were those things?
Okay. We'll get back to the San Bernardino Basin Meridian. At a place down in San Bernardino County, you see a road called Baseline Road, and then the Meridian line goes north and south. And that's where measurements are started. From that corner, you're either going to go north and west, or you're going to go south and west, or you're going to go north and east, or south and east. We are north and west of San Bernardino, which is pretty easy for most of us to figure out. We are in township. What we're talking about is the Rosamond area, the immediate Rosamond area, and then we'll move on after that. 9 townships above Baseline Road. So that's roughly 9 times 6 miles is 54 miles north of San Bernardino. And then they start measuring the ranges, and this is the area from 40th to 100th. So from in the middle, or not the middle, but inside the Edwards Air Force Base line to 40th Street is range 12 west. Rosamond is in section 21, range township 9 north, range 12 west. And maybe there's enough on those maps for you to be able to kind of get a handle on a column of townships, and then the ranges go east and west.
And then when you get down to Rosamond, you will see that there is the Interstate Highway 6. And if you look, you will see within Rosamond that here's Road 6 and here's the freeway.
No, that's the railroad.
Or goodness gracious, the railroad tracks. So
That didn't have a freeway on that map.
right, yeah, there was no freeway there. So if you look at that and you see that that road, or that the railroad is not running straight up and down. It's not running directly north and south. Now that's important to know, okay? So when you look right here,
Oh, we got it. Okay, you're good.
yeah, so this is the actual town site, right?
Township.
Township.
I'm sorry, town site, you're right.
Town site. I've had town sites and ships lost and confused. So you'll see Rosamond Boulevard up at the top, and then you see Orange Street down here at the bottom. Okay? And here is 20th Street West, and there is Sierra Highway. And you see that Sierra Highway is coming in at a diagonal. Now, why is that, Dolores?
Well, it's because Rosamond, a whole lot of the towns are laid out the same way. Lancaster, Rosamond, Mojave, and Tehachapi is the only ones I care about. But this is Rosamond, and it's a half a mile along the railroad tracks, is what they filed for the original town site. And they filed it in 1907. It was recorded April 17th, I think, 1907. Okay, I don't know what else you want.
Now, if you look and you see that Locust and Center Street and all of those are running perpendicular to Sierra Highway, and then you have Rosamond Boulevard that's running east and west. So underneath Rosamond Boulevard is the hidden street of Rosamond.
Hidden Street,
The-
Walnut Street.
Yes. And that was the original northern part of the town site.
Right.
Okay, and so you cannot see that street. You cannot go drive down Walnut Street anymore. So there is your hidden street. And if you were to look,
Is it on that map? Yeah.
yes,
Way up
so it's
north.
right up here up at the very top in the dotted lines.
Okay.
Okay, so that's actually Walnut Street. And you see how it's running parallel to the other ones, to Locust, to Poplar, to Center, to Elm, because that's the way the township was laid out.
Which is
And-
perpendicular to the railroad.
Perpendicular to the railroad. Okay, and then 20th Street was not 20th Street West. What was it called,
It was
Dolores?
Stuckey Road.
Stuckey Road.
Now that's a section line road, which doesn't line up with the way the town sites were laid out and recorded. So you're getting a little bit of both. You're getting the old town site, and then you're getting Rosamond Boulevard and 20th, which are later. They came later.
Okay, and so when they did that, that created this unique pie shape right here off of Dixie. So that's where that design came from, was the merging of these two ways of keeping track of the town.
Somebody should put a pie shop in there.
They should put a what? A pie shop. You're right. Or we could have math tutoring there, huh, Doreen?
I'm looking for crooked lines.
So right up here's a close-up of what Walnut Street would look like in relationship to Rosamond Boulevard.
And it was wider than the other streets. It was an 80-foot street. Closer to Rosamond Boulevard size then.
And whoops, I meant to go back here real quick. I'm sorry, I make you guys dizzy. If you were to look right, well, let me give you a little bit of a better one. I think I've got. No. Okay, so if you were to look where the railroad tracks are and where the current Sierra Highway is, the railroad owns how much of that, Dolores? How is that ordered?
Well, this is today. In order to encourage settlement, the government gave the railroad every other section of land.
Every other?
Every other. So a mile belonged to the railroad, and then the next mile got to be privately owned.
This will work a little better. I'm a little loaded.
And I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Well, I was just going to say that, so the railroad owned from Rosamond Boulevard down to Marie Street.
Yes.
Okay, and so that meant that Foster Freeze and Fast Trip had to do what?
They had to pay rent to the railroad. The
Okay,
railroad still, well, a few years ago, the railroad still owned the land. I haven't checked on it lately.
okay, and then north of Rosamond Boulevard,
We get to own our own stuff. So all those little parcels north, which would be where the gas station was and the Thai restaurant and my office, and the Jiffy Lube, we are owners. But you see how it helps settle things, make people come in and own stuff and have businesses.
so once again, kind of this movement of we want to have people own land, we want to sell them land, we want to rent them land, we want them to move. So this is the original town site, and so you've got, if you look down at the bottom where Orange Street is, so you're running
That's east-west,
east-west.
true east-west.
Okay, so that's the bottom part.
And, okay, and then, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so right here is where that pie-shaped section comes into Dixie. That's what that looks like today.
What year was that road paved over Walnut Street?
What year was Walnut Street paved over, Dolores?
I wasn't here.
A long time ago, Joe.
You sort of have to, yeah, I think probably before any of us were around.
Okay, and then this is looking back down that same pie-shaped road. Okay, now when you get to the end of Orange Street, you now have this merging of roads that are running parallel to the railroad tracks and parallel to Rosamond Boulevard. And so that creates a unique lot size. So this is right at the corner of Orange and Dixie. And what happened right there, Dolores?
Well, are we going to talk about Hummel Hall, or are we going to talk about...
This lot
cut-
right here.
Okay, on one of the maps you can look again and see that the lots that front on Orange get thinner, or they start thin and get wider, I believe. What do we do? I forgot how that worked. Anyway, they're not perpendicular to Orange because Orange Street is a true east-west, and the town site, all the lots are the old town site. So you have to you don't get a full lot if you're buying on Orange, because some of it's out in the street.
Yeah. Now, you're looking down here and you think, well, somebody must have been drinking when they drew this line, because you've got the dotted line going down Diamond, and then it veers. And so it makes that little jog, because the up to Orange right there is the old town site. And then once you get into past Orange, now you're running parallel to 20th Street West.
So this part is parallel to the railroad, and on the other side of the yellow line is parallel to 20th. If you could wrap your brain around that.
And so then Dolores and I went out sightseeing, and you know, I think for those of us that are blessed with Social Security or a pension or those types of things, we forget that there was another time and era. And so if you were to go out to 57th Street, 55th Street West, out by Tropico Middle School, on the south side of Rosamond Boulevard, there is this little house. And this woman was unique, Dolores, because what did she do?
Well, she's the only one I know of. She was left, I think it was 40 acres with this house on it, by her husband. They were farmers together. And he was named Reuben Bartlett, and she was Jeanette. And when I bought, Reuben had passed on, but they had owned 40 acres. And farmers, when Social Security started in 1935, am I doing too close or too far?
Too far.
In 1935, farmers were excluded. And Mrs. Bartlett then was left with a rather decent sized house and 40 acres. But what she did, and I was in my 20s, and I was telling Siobhan, I don't know how old that lady was. I know she wasn't 100, and I think she was older than 40, but she may have been 60 or thereabouts. She had no income, except her husband had left her land, and she sold pieces off. The law had said, which nobody knew anything about or cared probably, that you can split a piece of land into 4 parcels legally. Well, Mrs. Bartlett would sell off pieces of land, sometimes a half an acre, sometimes 4 acres, or something in between, 2.5 of her 40. This house is on the it's on the southwest corner of Rosamond Boulevard and Tropico. And so that land south of there and west of the house was part of her 40-acre farmland. And that is divided haphazardly with no regard to the 4-parcel split, as Mrs. Bartlett needed money. And she didn't move around a lot. She was old enough that she wasn't up and moving around a whole lot. And as it happens, back then in the 50s, we made payments of $10 a month. So, and I don't know if she only had $10 a month to live on, because maybe some of these things were paid off, or if she had maybe tins and whatever she needed. But she was very, very careful with her money, and I would visit with her when we made a payment every month. And I admired some little flowers. I don't think they were even plastic in those days. They were that other papery stuff that they used to make flowers out of. And she would buy one of those, because if you bought 2, you had to pay sales tax. So she acquired her bouquets, one flower at a time. But she got a bouquet out of the deal.
And she literally was saving a penny by doing that. So talk about such a different era and a different time. And this is out on 90th Street West. And so as we were continuing on our cruise, I did not know that this was the original
Gardena Club.
Club, yeah.
Yeah. So for those of us that are a little bit younger, the Coaches was the Gardena Club, and I did not know this was the original Gardena Club. Now, Dolores and I, we just really wandered around and had a great time. And she's got a good set of kidneys in the back because we went over every dirt road and washboard road there was. And can you imagine, you're out on 140th Street West. Can you imagine it today? You're sitting there thinking, I am in the middle of nowhere. So can you imagine it 70 years ago? So you might have thought you were going to the beach with all that sand. But I don't think that's quite where you ended up.
No, I can't even remember that one.
We were in Banff.
Was that Banff in Canada? Oh, wow, all right.
I think.
So we ended up out, and what you might perceive as just this is a shack. And you go by and you go, oh, you know, good Lord, people in, you know, desert rats in their shacks. Dolores doesn't see this. She sees something amazing. And so what is this, Dolores?
Well, what this is, there is a quarter section of land up 140th, which is why we went up that very wide road, because it's access to this government, we call it a government subdivision, a homestead subdivision, where the government allowed people to acquire, in this case, these are 5-acre parcels, acquire a piece of land if they would build what we call, or what I call, a prove-up cabin. There are 3 or 4 other names, but the goal was to build this house, which was, I am told, because I never read the Homestead Act, 12 by 20 feet, at least 12 by 20 feet. This particular one, and this is no building permits, no nothing. The government's just saying, build this. And Edison, you can see a wire coming in.
Do you see the wire?
The electrical drop. What it appears happened on this one is Edison says, well, we'll give you free electricity. If you'll get your house built, we'll give you some electricity. So here's this electrical drop on this. And I think it's the only one that we happen to see that had electricity to it. But you'll find each of these have a different characteristic. So this one has, we're getting pictures of the drop
whole
again.
electrical.
And that is still there. Edison hasn't come and torn it down or anything. They just left it.
They still have electricity.
And the transformer's still there.
Well, there may still be electricity there.
Well, there's not a
Doreen,
meter.
if you'd like to come and move in.
There's where the meter hung.
And then
This is inside looking out. Now, Siobhan and I decided, based on the paint job there, that this was probably built around 1960. Yeah.
now, for those of us that were squeaking this afternoon about how hot it was in this room, Dolores, what do you think this might be right here?
Well, this is what they called, I call it a refrigerator. It was their cooler that cooled the food. And they built a kind of a cage to hold the food, and they put wet burlap around on 3 sides of it, and probably the top and the bottom, and when the breeze blew through it, That was your cooler. You didn't keep things for too many days in that fridge. This is where a drain board where sinks were installed. So that was the kitchen drain board thrown out. There's the ceiling, still in pretty good shape.
Yeah. And then Dolores thought that this was really interesting, that these people maybe were feeling a little bit flush because they did what,
They
Dolores?
put in pretty good size eaves on that house. Some of them don't have any eaves at all. So these are about a foot overhang, which took quite a bit of extra lumber.
Yeah. And then we went and we found another prove-up house, and Dolores said this one was really ritzy because why?
Cement walk. That's built. It didn't get finished. And the reason it didn't get finished, we figured, well, it's a guess, but the wood that they used, they had intended to put wood around the door frames and around the window frames. Somebody came and burned up their wood and left. There's a scrap of it there, and there was some of it outside. And they just threw up their hands and said, oh, well, that's enough of that.
Now, I'll tell you, like I said, when you go with Dolores, you're touching and feeling everything. So this is one of the bolts from out there.
Yeah.
And so you can feel how heavy this was. These people were serious about what they were building. There wasn't any cheap stuff in that one.
Probably no imports.
And once again,
See, there's burnt wood.
the burnt wood all the way through there.
And this one, yeah, this is one of them. They had wired. That's a receptacle again. It's a receptacle, and they were preparing for the electricity.
Yeah. Out there on 140th Street West. And then, you know, Dolores and I were out there and we're looking, and I'm going, well, it looks like there's a one-room place. Maybe there's a little kitchen. And I'm thinking there might be missing something out there. And we only found one place of evidence of this. And Dolores, what was this?
That's the outhouse. Those houses didn't have inside bathrooms.
And we could only find the remnants of one. Now, of course, we're out in the middle of nowhere. And what do we come across but the sign that says, do not enter entire area, environmentally sensitive area? I don't know. If anybody's feeling bored out there around 140th, you can go figure it out. But we just thought it was beyond curious.
Well, we couldn't figure out.
What's environmentally sensitive?
We didn't know.
Well, they could be, they're always checking these days for little critters that might become extinct, yeah. Or it could be plants that might become extinct, but you can't tell by looking at the sign.
So we did not step in there.
That was good.
And then this was just kind of interesting as you're traveling along, and you know, and we're in places we shouldn't be. So this is what is out in the middle of the solar fields. And if you drive along there like you look like you know where you're going, nobody will stop and ask you. So it's worth a drive on a Sunday afternoon. And the roads are way better right there than what they appear to be.
Just not too much pavement, that's all.
And then we went out to Bacchus. Whoops. Sorry about that. Oh, goodness gracious here. Oh. Sorry about that, guys.
We aren't there yet.
There we
There
go.
we go.
So we were out here, out on Bacchus, and what was this, Dolores?
Well, there's another government subdivision off of Bacchus between 65th and 70th. And those are 5-acre parcels. There's a whole lot of them that have been divided, most of them into 2.5s. In this particular case, there was a family of 5 brothers and sisters, and they each homesteaded a 5-acre parcel. And then they divided each of them divided their 5-acre parcel into 4 pieces, which made it 1.25 acres. Well, to do that, the county code says you have to have 2.5 acres to be able to get a permit to drill a well. Well, you can bypass that if you can drill a well that provides sufficient water for, in this case, it was 20 parcels. So this is a well, these are the storage tanks for a water well system called Golden Crest Mutual Water Company. And those tanks are providing water to 20 parcels.
Now, Dawn, this is going to be our summer vacation home.
She thought it might take a little while to convince you, but she's got her mind made up. That's her favorite place, that Joshua tree and that little house.
Yeah, I'm ready to move in. And ironically enough, it had, what did you think about this that made this so unique?
Well, this is the very first time in all of the prove-up cabins that I've seen, they have a front porch here that's about, I never measured it because I work on these things in the night. So when I got back, I was reliving this, and here they have a porch, a concrete front porch. It's about 4 to 6 feet deep. Only a little cabin with a front porch. But that's,
see, honey?
Siobhan's got her mindset on that.
Yeah. And it just needs a little bit of work.
Well, she's used to that. That's no big deal.
By Bacchus?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's off of Bacchus.
Now, when you look inside, one of my last conversations with Russ McKee was, I got a piece of this, and this is the inside of it. And his philosophy was that maybe I shouldn't be licking it. It might be full of asbestos. So I'm going to pass it around in a baggie. But if you look at it, it's really, really interesting. And this is lining the whole inside of this place. And what did you say it was called?
It's called Zolatone. I had a brother-in-law that was a painter. And there for a while, he Zolatoned everything. But there's a texture to that, color and texture.
On the walls? Or
On the walls and
On the
ceilings.
walls?
Wow.
And it's just beautiful, and it holds up really well. And you see inside, I mean, they've taken the time to make a little cornice out of all of this. And the whole walls are done in this. Just amazing.
You have cornice boxes.
I said, and you broke a piece off.
I did. No, it was down on the ground.
There's enough on the floor to help yourself.
Yeah. And then, of course, like I said with Dolores, you never just look at something and go, oh, gee, isn't that cute? Dolores sees something else in here. And so we went out and we looked around that. And what do you think that might
We
be,
decided
Dolores?
that was one of the coolers, the food coolers. And you reach in, you could reach from the kitchen in and get your stuff instead of going outside, right uptown.
Yeah, pretty snazzy. And then, this is the only house in Rosamond that I know of that has
Shutters. They shuttered the windows. And some of them were gone and some of them were still there, I think.
doesn't now this I can understand somebody wanting to move out to Rosamond for.
You think? Well, different strokes for different folks.
There is. And so Dolores made me stop and look at this. And
This
she
is
found,
our plant, Gretchen. Count those buds.
you got to tell them.
Yeah, we think they're going to be blooming about this week, and there's probably, nearly 20 of them there. One little flower, and then the rest of them are going to bloom all at once.
It's gonna be spectacular.
So there is truly beauty in all that we find. And going on a road trip with Dolores is a great way to explore it all. So I would like to just thank you so much.
Well, I want to get a word in here. I want to thank Siobhan for all of her hard work, because I didn't do any of this. All I had to do was talk. So she did all the pictures and the setting things up and gathering information. And it wouldn't have gotten done if it wouldn't have been for Siobhan. Okay.
I have a question. What about the ownership of these homestead places? Because obviously they're abandoned. What about?
You want to talk into this, Gretchen?
Somebody still pays taxes on them. Very, very few of them, if you look in the tax rolls, will have a government ownership. And you kind of presume that nobody ever came along and bought that when they were available to buy.
I got moving a little closer,
There's something
sweetie.
I was going to say. Oh, I think, I'm not sure, now you cannot homestead land. The government has put a stop to it. But I can't remember the year it happened.
Are there any other people that have any questions? Because, I mean, these are good parcels of land. It's just, I wondered why they're so abandoned. Does anyone else have a question?
Probably because the electricity sucks and the water's bad.
No water and no electricity.
And there's asbestos in the walls. I do have a little bit more, Gretchen. Because we are supposed to install our new slate of officers. And when you've been on a road trip, of course, you need to know how you've gotten where you've gotten, right? Otherwise, you're lost and confused, which is kind of my middle name. And Mac, could I have you come up here, please?
You're going to do it this time.
Well, you just...
It's always a surprise.
Now, you know Mac is our videographer, so this says caution, KAHS video ahead, Mac.
That's nice, thank you.
You're welcome, my dear.
Make sure that the camera can see that.
You got to hold it up and say cheese into your camera, dear.
I'm making sure.
And then, of course, you know that we are a member of the Kern Antelope Historical Society. So, Judy, would you come up, please? And Judy is one of our board members. And you can't have a board member without having an antelope watcher. So Judy is our official antelope watcher. And then, of course, I'm just having a heck of a good time, so I'm in charge of the Kern Antelope Historical Society at Play department, and I get to play with everybody. And then Lori, is Lori here tonight?
She's not, she's sick.
Oh, gosh darn it. Tom, I'm going to have you be Lori for a minute. You're looking rather cute, what can I tell you?
I don't think you're getting full cooperation there.
He's really not going to.
Hannah, you want to come be Lori for a minute? And that way we won't We won't traumatize the big brute. So Hannah, Lori's a bit special. So she always has the can out there with the toll pass. And you will see that they are in the, oh goodness.
High occupancy.
A high occupancy vehicle. So there are 3 treasurers in our group, and Lori's in charge of shaking everybody down with the toll pass. Now I'm going to have you stand up here, Hannah, and continue for a moment. Now, you're just going to have to get up. What can I tell you, Kelly? If somebody has a cattle prod, that'll help her.
She ain't here for it.
Now, Kelly is a bit of a literal treasurer, which is a good thing to be in a position of a treasurer. And so Kelly believes that there's one way to do things.
The right way.
The right way. Now, Joe's a bit special, or Char's a bit special. So Char is our other treasurer, and
There's my best friend right here.
yeah, she is.
Whoops, sorry.
And Char is kind of her own little roundabout. You never know where she's going to go, where she's going to land, or how she's going to spin out of this.
Okay, so what I've learned is call Kelly first and use pencil. That's it. Now I'm good.
So there are 3 treasurers that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Sorry, Kelly. And then, where is Janet? Come on up. Now, I only found this sign in one place in the United States, and it's in Akron, Ohio. But Janet has the ability, she's writing the newsletter, and she does a beautiful job. And it ends up with like 4 half-a-sentences for me, usually one at 2 in the morning, one at 2 in the afternoon. And Gretchen tries to fill in all the spots and everything. So Janet is merging from both directions to get the newsletter going. And she's very unique. There aren't too many double mergers that we have. Oh, thank you. And then, of course, the vice president's job is to steer us all into the Kern Antelope Historical Society and do things the right way and to support Gretchen. And that's Dolores's job. And then I wanted to read a little something here for you. There is a saying that's called, what is your true north? And they use that as an expression, not as a geographical term. And it says, it's a guidance, your orienting point, your fixed point in a spinning world that helps you stay on track. And Gretchen is our true north in the Historical Society. And so Gretchen is north, and she is our interstate that runs throughout for all of us. So thank you for being on our road trip tonight.
Thank you, Siobhan. Siobhan is always so creative, and I had totally actually forgotten that we were supposed to have this little event with our officers and everything. So thank you, Siobhan, for remembering.
Janet has something.
Yes.
I think this was good, and if anybody has more ideas or suggestions of places to go for a road trip, pass that on to Siobhan. We could have a road trip too or something.
Yes, absolutely. Dawn and I had the awesome experience of going up to Manzanar. We're going to have the woman who was very involved in creating the museum up there, and she knows where we have a Manzanar location and Manzanar building down here. And so she will be coming to speak to us. And there's just so much history. And if you really get the chance to maybe go out geocaching or something like that, you don't know what you'll find. So I highly recommend it.
Well, again, we need to thank Siobhan and Dolores because they did an absolutely fabulous job. Thank you, Dolores and Siobhan, and thank you all for coming. And I hope a few of you are interested in coming up and helping us go through things in my barn. So I hope you signed up on the list.
Yeah.
Without further ado, the next time we will officially get together will be in September at Siobhan's Ranch, so watch the newsletter. Janet will do her wonderful thing with the newsletter.
Do you have a date for it?
It is the third Tuesday of September.
We're staying with the third Tuesday for a while.
Yeah.
So third Tuesday in September. Okay, again, thank you all.